Hello and welcome to the EFM Health Club Podcast for another week. I am joined, as always, with both Wade Brady and Jason Jesusius. How are you guys?
Jason, Justin, good.
Good to see you both again, back for another week. I'm, of course, Justin Waring. I should introduce myself first. That would flow better. But anyway, we had, just off air, had a nice conversation about last week's guest, Sashi. If you haven't heard it, really enlightening conversation about the effects of exercise on mental health. And it posed a few questions to us subsequently in terms of what we're doing cardio-wise. When we heard 20 minutes of cardio is great for people with anxiety to help reduce that. And sometimes we think, the emphasis on strength training, which we're all for, sometimes overshadows the need to also do some cardio and some steady state cardiovascular exercise. So we thought in the coming weeks we will do the purpose of cardiovascular training, why it's important, off the back of Sashi, and we're looking to have some other guests very soon too. So it's really nice to have that expert's point of view. And guys, I think we learned as much as maybe the listeners learned from that conversation.
Always more to learn, absolutely.
Yeah. So today we are taking a little bit of a track, but it's probably online with the thought processes around exercise. We're asking the question, what makes up a hard workout? So sometimes when we're writing our own programs up for the members, people come in and we don't think, it's a nice, easy, light session for people. And people come in and they go, they start doing, this is too hard. I can't do this. Too hard. It's too hard. Why did you write such a hard program for Friday afternoon? And so that balance between what people find hard and what people find maybe a little bit interesting, a bit easy, is always interesting to me, and the perceptions of. And then in our own workouts, boys, we'll probably be a little bit more deliberate around wanting to do a really hard workout one day and then maybe some recovery workouts thereafter. So we thought we'd ask the question, and it was actually prompted by one of our members saying, well, what's a hard workout? What are the elements? How do I know when I've done one? And should I do more of them? So we're going to answer a few of those questions and all the little points in and around. So guys, I'll ask you guys can kick us off. What makes up a hard workout to you? Wade, do you want to go first?
Yeah, well, wasn't planning on starting here, but I want to start off on the perception of hard, I guess, first of all. So I just popped into my head, when I play a game of basketball and I'm fully engaged and I'm having fun and enjoying it, my heart rate's through the roof. Look, it's over 90% for most of the game. At the end of the game, no one's talking about how hard it was. But in a workout, if I was just on cardio machines and it's not as probably engaging, it's not a game. If I had the same heart rate, I'd get to the end of the session and go, oh my God, that was hard. So I'll probably start there. Hard workout, I think most of the time it would equal a better workout. You're going to get more results. I would start with, in the gym setting, when you're doing strength exercises and conditioning exercises, in particular, when you're going from one to another, the obvious things like rest time, shortening your rest time. But for me, just observing people over the years, we might have a program written up and some people obviously get through it faster than others. But the big thing for me is range of motion. I think if you're asking people to go really low in their squats or really low in their push-ups for every rep, and then you get other people that are trying to race through the program a bit quick and they might be doing half the range of the motion, they're going to get through the program so much quicker. And just training myself, I just know how much harder and more beneficial it is, because it's really, you're comparing a half rep to a full rep. So I'll start it off there. That for me is usually the big change in a program that makes it harder or not. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Justin?
Jason,
sorry.
I'll build on that a bit, Wade. What I heard you saying there is pushing the boundaries. So pushing the boundaries on your range of motion. There are other ways that you can push the boundaries, obviously, as well. You also mentioned the amount of rest you take between exercises. That'll impact how hard the workout is. Obviously, the weight that you lift, or the speed with which you do things, or the stability involved. Some exercises you can add an instability element, and that makes that particular exercise hard. You can also be talking about your perception of your own exertion. So you get to the end and you feel a bit exhausted. Geez, I pushed my boundaries. I feel like I've had a hard workout. Or it could be that you've lifted a weight or done a time on a cardio activity that you haven't done before, or you're pushing for your best effort, or you're doing as many reps as you can, or you're going as fast as you can, or close to. I guess I'm going a bit all over the place there, but they're all, I think, considerations in what makes a hard workout. Am I doing it closer to my limit or beyond, or am I well within what my limit is? And then how do I recover the next day? So
so we're talking a hard workout. I think maybe universally we could say then is one where you have your capacity that you're comfortable with, and you're deciding whether you're being told by a trainer or directing yourself that I'm going to try and go beyond what I've done before. I'm gonna push my, not so much my limit, but I'm gonna push beyond, and I'm gonna overload with whatever exercise I'm doing. I'm gonna overload my previous best, or I'm gonna try to get very close to that, so that I'm almost either at my capacity or a little bit beyond what I thought I could potentially do. So, and there's a whole range of techniques that we'll discuss maybe a little bit later about how you can potentially do that. We've touched on them, rest and weights and times and all kinds of things, but so there'll be a few techniques involved. One thing I do want to stress though, and maybe we can chat about the difference between hard and effective. So just because something is hard doesn't mean it's particularly effective in my belief. So if you're working towards a particular goal, and say you had, if we make it a little universal, whether it be, and cardio goals are probably the easiest, I guess, because they're very measurable. I want to go this far in this time at this level. And if you have a particular goal, say running, I want to run a 5-kilometer race in such and such. There's ways and techniques in terms of interval training, and maybe adding some, sprints are including interval training, maybe some weights or some other things to make that training harder. Kind of throwing in a session where you might do 100 burpees because you think that's the hard way to do it. I'm going to do a hard workout. I've got to do a hard one. I'm going to do 100 burpees. Doesn't necessarily make that effective, and it won't get you any closer to your goal. So I think hard and effective is something that maybe we need to take into consideration when we talk about a good hard workout.
There's good. There's good hard workouts, and maybe there's hard workouts. Sorry, Jason.
Hard for the sake of hard.
Yeah. So I'd say that just because you're suffering whilst you're doing it doesn't necessarily make it hard. You might just not be very good at that movement.
Yeah, that's a good one with balance. If you look at balance exercises, if someone's got extremely good balance, they just breeze through that set of balance exercises, where someone that really struggles with their balance, they're going to use the H word. They're going to be telling you how hard this is, and they'll actually want to stop because it's just so frustrating but there's just different types of hard, I suppose, isn't there? Like if you're used to using the same weights every time you go to the gym, and then for whatever reason today you're going to try 10% heavier on everything and try and hit the same number of reps, you're going to walk out going, God, that was hard. So it doesn't always mean your heart rate's, particularly the balance one, it doesn't mean that your heart rate's going to be, you're going to walk out in a sweaty mess. It doesn't always mean that, of course not. But and hard could just be a shock to the system. Like if you just run on the treadmill and you might do it a lot, always at the same pace, always the same distance, and then one day someone might come along and say, try this, and they add in some form of interval stuff in there, which is a total shock to your system. All of a sudden, that's hard. Like you still might go to 5Ks in the same time overall, but you've got your peaks and your troughs. So yeah, it's interesting. It's a pretty hard one to question. It's a pretty hard one to answer, I think. What is hard?
It's funny when we're at this state of, social media saturation, whatever that, we keep trying to find things to victimize or demonize. So, suddenly burpees are the worst thing that you can do. You shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. People are looking for things just to almost as much as people look to complain about stuff in the gym, they're looking, the people that have been going for a long time are looking for reasons not to, to slag off exercises. I find it a little comical. Like, it's getting worse too.
Well, Bulgarians get a bad they get a bad time, or whatever you say. But I feel like first time I tried Bulgarians, I remember I found them on YouTube when YouTube probably wasn't really that old, and I was in the carport at a place we were renting, and I was out. I remember I got a chair, put the back foot up, listened to the advice. I think full range, and that was the hardest thing. And then you keep doing them, and then you go out to footy trainer and really realize that you can run pretty much at full speed and pick the ball up off the ground, and you get this realization of like, whoa, that was easy. Like that's the easiest that's ever felt. And then now I can put quite a lot of weight on my shoulders and do Bulgarians. So it's funny how like if you only ever try it once, you could just write it off as like, that's too hard, I'm not doing that again.
But then you also get, people going, don't ever do this exercise, it's going to hurt you, yada, yada, yada. And it's just terrible advice. The one thing I wanted to talk about is when we have people, and if you're listening, and this is one of you, maybe listen closely, people who want to do maintenance, and they might be a little bit older. They go, look, I'm just here to maintain my body. All right. I just want to do, I want to be kind of pain-free. I want to be fit, but, not really, I'm not looking at any great goal. Maintenance is the word. Maintenance word I hear a lot. Does a hard workout, can you be a maintenance type person and do a hard workout and look forward to a hard workout? Are those two things compatible?
I would like to think for most people it should be compatible. I think there's a certain number of people out there that are just really happy with where they're at, or they might have a fear from years ago where they tried to push themselves hard because the coach talked them into it and it wasn't a pleasant experience. It should be compatible, I think. Because again, you get that satisfaction from overcoming it and going, oh, I've just proved something to myself.
Yeah, a bit like, they talk about business. If you're not growing and you're not going forward, well, then you're probably going backwards. Well, not probably, you definitely are. So even if you're in this maintenance stage of your life, doing a hard workout and challenging yourself a bit so that you can still grow a little bit, whether it be whatever you're lifting, movement, cardio, whatever. If you're not trying to grow a little bit, you're probably shrinking. So for the maintenance people out there, and like I say, I hear that word a lot, I'd suggest that you're still in line to do a hard workout within limits, but at least try to push your boundaries just a touch. You're back, Jose.
Yeah, sorry, boys. I had a bit of trouble with connection there. I think it comes back to point one, Justin, about what's a hard workout, what's hard and effective. Hard and effective is getting out of comfortable and into uncomfortable. That's, I think, based on what we talked about, I think that's the way I view it. Because yes, there's pushing your absolute boundaries and breaking new ground, but there's also getting beyond what that comfortable stage is, getting uncomfortable, because that's what's going to trigger a response from your nervous system to improve the area of your fitness that you're working on. If it's not uncomfortable, then there's not going to be as much of a response. With that said, can we show up every day and just hammer ourselves and do hard workouts every day? No, we know that's not good for us either. So that's going to end up in injuries and or fatigue. So,
but there's that saying, uncomfortable creates change. And the other one I heard it somewhere along the lines, I like the line, your body counts as the stimulus you apply to it. So if you start applying a new stimulus, your body will get better and improve and change and get better to overcome that stimulus. And it might be, I like the example of impacts, like maybe hitting a boxing bag, like you might be on the road to osteoporosis or something, and you start skipping, or something where you're like doing a box step up and you're stomping on the box. It's a bit not as intense as skipping, or the boxing bag, that impact, like you're shocking the bones and your body counters that stimulus by strengthening the bones. So it's a funny word, maintenance. Like if you try, you can't really be maintaining every single element of your fitness. Like it's just look, because there's so many things that you can work on with your fitness. It's like, I think you stay fit overall, but at the moment I've been doing a bit more balance work and I've improved at that. And I've been also working, next thing is I want to work on my mobility a bit more, so it's to just maintain, keep everything at the same level. I don't mind what you say there, Justin, about if you're not moving forward, you're coming backwards.
Yeah, and I think what they're trying to say generally is as I'm getting older, I don't want to deteriorate. So might be in my 50s and I'm comfortable with my level of fitness. I may have a few extra kilos, but I'm comfortable with all that. I'm not looking to go to the beach with my shirt off. If you're a fella, I don't need to be ripped, but I don't want to have a steady decline into retirement. So I know I have to do a few things, and a lot of that comes across in individual sessions saying, well, that's probably going to be a bit hard for me. That's not included in my maintenance program, so I won't do that hard one. But the easy stuff I can do because that'll maintain me nicely. And I think I sit on the side of the fence where it would be, if you're not trying to progress a little bit, if you're not doing the harder things within, if your mobility isn't great and we wouldn't do things where you'd lift excessive weights, but if you're not challenging yourself, you're probably slipping down that slope just a little bit slower, but you're slipping down that slope anyway.
It's not black and white, is it? Because what you're saying, Justin, you can take the simplest exercises and do them hard, and the workout's super effective. Like some of the best workouts when you've got 8 to 10 relatively simple movements and that most people can do, but if you do them challenging your limit to how you do them, like there's, someone's capable of doing 15 push-ups. Well, if you give them 5, that's not very challenging. But if you give them 15, that might be challenging to them. You might give them some body weight squats, but if you're asking to do more body weight squats, or you're getting to do them more regularly, then by the end of the session, the body weight squats are challenging. It depends on the load that you're providing, and so when people say I want to do my maintenance exercises, well, that's cool. Do your maintenance exercise, but challenge something, whether it's the resistance that you're lifting or the endurance that you're going for. Or if you're stretching, stretch to your limits. Stretch and challenge how far through the range of motion that you can stretch, because you're going to, Wade, you said that your body responds to the stimulus you provide it. or the
counters
the stimulus you provide it. Cool. Stretch beyond what you're comfortable stretching to make that stretch uncomfortable enough to get a result. Improve your flexibility, improve your mobility. You might not be smashing big weights or getting your heart rate through the roof, but you're improving your mobility with whatever activity it is that you're doing. It doesn't necessarily have to feel exhausting, but am I making sense with that?
Yeah. I think when I was younger and starting out in the gym, and this would have to be universal for people starting out, I'd imagine, I was always trying to find, what's the most effective way possible? What's the littlest I have to do to get the best results? It's hard when you start, when you're not mentally conditioned to pushing yourself, because your brain's like a muscle too, and it gets stronger, which we talked about last week, the psychologist. But if you can't get your head around working hard, I think a couple of things that you could change straight away at the gym, particularly the strength training, is just increasing your range of motion a little bit more. It depends what you've actually started with. Maybe you're already doing, but slowing the reps down as well. So that might be a more appealing way to make your workout harder, but you'll actually get more out of it. So it doesn't mean you've got to do things faster and get your heart rate higher. Like, it might just be slowing, because you said before 15, someone might be able to do 15 push-ups. If you give them 5, it's a bit of a waste of time. But straight away, my brain went, what if you told them to go 6 seconds up, 6 seconds down? And at the top, you have to round your back and you have to go chest to floor. All of a sudden, I don't think people could do their 5 push-ups like that. If they
That's right. But you're challenging something, aren't you?
Yeah. It's how you do it, not the number.
Yeah, it's probably a question we should have asked last week. But people's ability to think to themselves, what you were just saying, Wade, I actually want to do the hard stuff. How we take that leap from, someone who wants to maintain their body or wants to lose weight, build muscle, whatever they want to do, but be able to do the hard stuff is a really big mental leap. It's a bit like being at school when you really don't want to do your homework. Some people feel like they have to because they're worried about getting into trouble or whatever that might be. And some people really want to do it, but they're few and far between. If you're a person that does it because they kind of have to, or the person that doesn't do it because no one's watching, how we take that leap from that to going, yes, I really want to do the hard stuff, which is the way that we start to affect change. I'm a little unsure at this point. There are a lot of individual ways, but if we could find that at some point in any of these podcasts, we wouldn't be doing the podcast, we'd be millionaires. So, that'll be the last one.
I guess the question is, for me then, why do we do hard stuff?
Yeah, a lot of people don't, and they don't want it.
But I'm asking you, why do we do exercise and make it hard? Why do we do that? What's the purpose?
I feel like I'm in competition with myself, number one. Like, if I know how many chin-ups I normally do, and if today I'm struggling, I'm like, come on, you normally do this many. Like, I don't call that ego, call it what you want. It works for me.
Yeah. I think that mindset of wanting to see how far you can push yourself comes far easier the more you've done it. So repetition of, I want to challenge myself. Yeah, actually, I want to see if I can do that. And it shouldn't be rare, but I think it is because people get comfortable. But I know you start with a 5-kilometer run, you go, I think I can run 10, I'll try 10, I'll try 20, I'll try 40, I'll try 100. I think I can pick that heavy thing up. What if I stick some things on the end? I reckon I can still pick it up. young boys, teenage boys are really good at that. Can you pick that
Yeah.
up? I can pick that up. Have a go. And
Yeah.
and it's a really competitive environment. So I guess if you're a little bit competitive, and a lot of that maybe comes from like an early sporting background, I tend to think they go hand in hand. You're used to competing, and then you start competing with other people in your own mind, whether there's a competition or not. Some
Yeah.
people really can't let that go, and they're funny story. We did the squatting, bring Sally up, bring Sally down song the other night, and one of the girls said, "I'm gonna win this." Like, you can't win. It's a song. No. I'm gonna win. I'm gonna do it longer than anyone else. You go, no. The song finishes. She's so hyper competitive that she wanted to win the song. So, and she's one that really wants to push herself constantly. So it is I think it's a practice skill, actually. The more I think about it, the more I ramble.
I don't think you're rambling, Justin. I think so. Add to that. So while we're challenging ourselves, is it agreed that it feels horrible while you're challenging yourself?
Oh, yeah.
Like physically, it's hard, right? But how do you feel afterwards?
Great.
Once exhaustion's worn off.
Did that. That's good. I'm pleased with myself. How do you go forward with your day?
Yeah, well, and then I think
everything else is easier.
Yeah. And you think next time I'm going to do more.
Yep. Yeah. And as the day goes on, especially you do your workout in the morning, for instance, you get up, you challenge yourself, you push your limits, and then you go into the rest of your day like it's game on. It's not ready for today. Don't feel like it. You charge out all fired up. You're energized. There's something about it. And our guest last week, Sashi, can probably speak to this better than what I can. But what happens up here when you come out after having challenged yourself is all of a sudden that momentum that you've just created goes into your next task and the rest of your day. And then all of a sudden, if you're doing that regularly, it just becomes a part of who you are. You challenge yourself, you push your limits, not just in the gym, but in other areas of your life because you've had success pushing your limits.
And I think people that have never done this really probably struggle to understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Talk
And
to someone who went from not understanding it, who started, and then they go, "Oh my God, it was like a light switched on for me."
Yeah.
And now there's no stopping them.
This is why I'm looking forward to just interviewing just some of our regular members. Like, they don't have to be an expert in anything. I just want to really hear people's insights of how they went from being a plodder at the gym to training hard and loving it. And they'll be telling everyone that's the best thing that ever happened to me. So I really want to start digging into to people's psyche and ask how they made the change and give their perspective on the whole journey. Yeah.
All right. So we've made a clear case. If for the people listening now, what are some of the techniques that we can employ? And we've mentioned a few along the way. Let's try to get a bit of a list. Some of the techniques we can employ in both cardio training and strength training to make our workouts harder / more effective.
Go cardio first, and just Jason, probably.
So cardio wise, for an effective hard workout, there needs to be some discomfort, whether it's the length or the intensity over a shorter duration. But discomfort is the key. Discomfort can be described as not being able to hold conversation. Discomfort can be described as your legs or whatever part of your body you're doing cardio with, upper body or lower body, is feeling uncomfortable and starting to feel fatigue, that you can't sustain that speed comfortably anymore. So yes, it's that general feeling of discomfort and being out of breath, followed by that relief and maybe not the euphoria, but the relief and the being energized that you feel after the workout.
If you have a heart rate monitor, what and it tells you your percentage of your maximum heart rate, what sort of numbers would you be looking at?
That's a great question. It does vary from person to person. However, I say blue or in your 60s for your percentage of your max is typically something that can be sustained for a long time. You'd need to do that for a long time.
So that's in your 60s for people that don't have, that's in your 60% range, isn't it?
Yeah.
61, 69, yeah.
Yep. So, and at that stage, you're generally pretty comfortable. Green can be sustained for some time.
70.
However, green will at some point become uncomfortable. That's 70 to 79%. That's at a rate where you can talk, but it's probably one sentence at a time. Above 80%, 80 to 89%, you're starting to get down to the 4 to 6, 5 to 7 words type range. It's not sustainable for a long period. Or if you do a full workout in yellow, then you're going to feel the effects the next day. You're going to feel fatigue. That's quite a hard workout. And once you start getting above that into the 90s, that's short bursts only. But that's ultimately quite a high cardiovascular intensity. You're only going to be getting probably 1 to 3 words out, and you're not going to feel very happy about life at all for very long if you're working at that sort of level. Does that answer your question, Wade? And would you agree?
Yeah. The first thing you said is everyone is different, but you could probably gamify that situation. So if you had a heart rate monitor, do your usual, get familiar with what percentage or what number of heartbeats per minute, and the next time you come in, just try and step it up a bit more. Just try and sit a bit higher, or add in a little bit of interval. Well, you can increase you could add in some interval training, and it doesn't have to be strict all out sprint, all out active recovery, but it might be, I'll pick my beats per minute up. I'll see if I can add 10, and I'll see if I can hold that for a minute, and then I'll just let it drop back down to whatever it is, and then for 2 minutes, and then I might do it again for another minute. So you just turn it into a little game, and you're going to make it harder. You're going to be shocking the system a bit, and that uncomfortable will create more change. Yeah.
And you're getting to a greater point, which is to measure what you're doing. If you can measure what you're doing, then it gives you something to focus on. A friend of mine said to me once, what gets measured gets done. So you might not be fanatical about measuring things, and that's okay.
Sorry.
And if we move on to strength, they're reasonably similar. Well, some are similar, the techniques. So we're looking at a bit of a progressive overload. So as we were just chatting about, setting a mark for yourself and then challenging it, and not trying to challenge it every day, but maybe you want it, particularly with strength training, giving your muscles a bit of a break, and then challenging it, say in a few days' time or the following week when we get back around to that muscle. One of the things that I like to do myself and with my members is to work on the time that the muscle is under tension. It's a bit of an older fashioned exercise technique, to not so worry about how many reps, but how long. And you guys alluded to it before about doing that full range, slow push up, 6 seconds up, 6 seconds down. So it really doesn't matter how many push-ups we do in that, but how long we have the muscles under tension. Very underutilized and underappreciated technique for delivering both good results and this hard workout that we're trying to organize right now.
It's interesting. I did a little test on push-ups years ago. It was a pretty loose test, but I got people to do, the first time they came in, the willing participants, I said, I want you to do push-ups 1 second up, 1 second down, and I'll probably put a yoga block under their belly, and they had to, so the consistency of depth or whatever. 1 second up, 1 second down, but I wanted people to time how long they could do that for. And then when they came in the next week, I said, okay, now we're going to do 5 second reps. So 3 seconds down, 2 seconds up. But again, I want you just to time, I don't care how many you do, I just want you to time how long you can do the set for. And when I looked at all the numbers, it was pretty much double. The duration of the push-ups was actually pretty much on average twice as long when slowing it right down. So I just thought that was really interesting, because it's probably fast is better. Probably a few people fall into that trap. Other ways, like the advice I'd give to someone, if they have their routine, they go to the gym, they always do the same number of reps, the same weight. I would recommend so say you do 10 reps all the time, I'd say try going heavier. Forget about 10 reps. As soon as you go heavy, you're probably not going to get to 10 reps anymore. But it might be 8 on the first set. It might be 7 on the next one, and then it might only be 5. But stick with that, and then the numbers will grow. And the idea is to try and get up to your same number of reps again. There's so many different ways. So many different ways.
So I guess if we define that, that's probably more working to your muscles failure. So we're working on the time under tension as one technique for strength training. So if we go back a step, we go cardio, we're looking at a progressive overload and maybe some intervals as another technique. Then we've got what I like to do, the time under tension, where you're talking about upping the weight and going to a point of failure for the muscle, which you can do with, I guess,
timed,
the same weight and time.
You can.
I guess maybe one of the fundamentals really is trying to push your muscle to failure, and that will create a hard workout. So we've got those two techniques. And the other thing I like to do is, when I mentioned a fair few podcasts ago, is to do a pre-exhaust exercise where we do an exercise for a particular muscle, which works particularly well for the back, cable pull down. And then once I've used that muscle enough so that it's tired, I'll go and hit it with, a seated row, a lat pull down, so that it's already exhausted. So, and I'm just hitting that muscle, and my arms don't give out essentially before my back does. So I'm exhausting, I'm using a muscle, and I'm really going to exhaust it. That creates good impact and is a difficult way to exercise, because it is tough and takes the mental, I guess, strength in that moment to want to push through a tiredness barrier to get that second exercise out.
That's probably a good learning for some people, though, that try that, because then you can actually better feel those back muscles rather than it feel like it all being arms. So there's probably another benefit.
Yeah.
I think this is a very nuanced conversation, and all of these ideas are really, really good for the listener at home. You might be thinking, well, which one of these is for me? Do I do all of them? Do I try everything? Do I try anything? The best advice I can give is to consult a professional in what your training regime should look like, or do your own research and base it on where you are right now. How can I progressively and steadily overload or increase my training intensity in order to bring about a higher result, a better, stronger, faster, more durable result?
Great point. That was actually the first thing that popped into my head before, because I thought I should say that before I say go and grab a heavier weight and see how many you can do. The first thing you want to do is make sure you're actually moving correctly. Maybe with your quite light weight, your not so good technique is you're going to get away with it. But that's a really good point. You want to be moving correctly.
On the cardio side, I can give someone. I've got members that I could give an interval block to. I could say, hey, 1K warm up. Give me 4 1K intervals with a 90-second break and 1K cool down. And they'd go and do the workout, and it'd be a great hard workout, and they might not walk for a week. And that might lead to a calf injury, or, so the load, the individual has to be considered with the load that you're giving as well. So coming back to one of Justin's earlier points, harder isn't necessarily better just because it's harder. Your fitness level, where you're at with your training, needs to be considered. A progressive, steady, just go past your comfort zone. Excellent. Brilliant. I can handle that load. Come back next session or next week. Try something similar again, but a little bit further, because there's a value to staying on the track. There's a value to staying off the injured list, because as soon as you're injured and off, then well, you're not working on that anymore. That's not to say, hey, don't push your boundaries. It's to push your boundaries sensibly, with good form, with consideration to what's going to be enough versus too much.
Yeah. All right. Somehow it always seems to come around to maybe you should go and get some advice from your local EFM. Somehow.
Yep.
Always works out that way.
So strange.
So that'll do us for another week. Hey.
So yeah, one of those clubs where your workout might be easy.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Go and find an easy workout and an easy EFM.
Great advice.
Well, that'll do us for another week. Now, if you've listened to this podcast and you've enjoyed it, please follow or subscribe, leave us a comment. It will help us expand the show, which we are looking to do. We're putting out one a week at this point, and we're really enjoying it. So your feedback and information will be very valuable to us.
Or even if you'd like to be interviewed and have a chat with us, don't be shy. Speak up. What can you offer us?
We'd love to hear your story.
If you've got something to say, a story to tell, we'd love to talk to you. That would be fantastic. Boys, we all have Instagram and Facebook. I don't know if you guys are on X either. I'm not. But where can we find you guys on your social media platforms? What are the addresses, handles? Is that what they call them? Handles?
I'll probably do my best work on my Instagram page.
Yours is
in my
awesome,
opinion. EFM McGill, MAGILL. Yes.
Yeah, and Jace.
And mine's my Insta's EFM Mawson Lakes.
Yeah, and I'm not very active on Instagram or Facebook, but EFM Westmead for me, I put stuff out occasionally, but Wade is really the true master of social media. So find us there. If not, find us next week on this podcast player you're on now. We look forward to your company then. We'll see you soon.
Thank you so much. Thanks, boys.